Welcome back, everyone, in this AI application development using Azure and OpenAI series. In this part, we're going to talk about the second part of our development activity, right? This is basically the part 5 of the video, but we will talk about the second part of the video. We will use the same config file we set up earlier, and then this time I'm going to use LangChain for the OpenAI. So LangChain is quite popular for the AI development. So you'll use that. There are other things also available. You can explore them, but I'm going to use the LangChain. So let's dive into our code space and start writing a bit and pieces over here. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to go ahead and say a markdown. Let me put a markdown saying that LangChain. So in that LangChain simple approach, I will take the simple approach to show you how it can work. So I will say that approach, and I say the simple approach, and I insert a code base, and I'm going to write a few lines of code. And I'm not going to write everything by hand so that we know what we are doing and we can implement that later point in time. So I'll say from LangChain underscore OpenAI. So we'll use this term, and I'll say import Azure OpenAI. Cat OpenAI. This is the thing. And you remember that we installed LangChain OpenAI as a library. So that's mandatory. You need that. And then I'm going to use a variable called LLM. And I'll say Azure Chat OpenAI. And then it will take few things. It will take Azure deployment. Let's say Azure. And not this one, rather the model deployment name. So this time I'm going to use this key. Okay, so you see that if you happen to switch to production environment and change all of them, we don't need to change the code if you take this approach. They'll be all part of the environment variable. If you use this in a Kubernetes context, you can load them as an env file. You can put it in the secret store, do all sort of stuff. Let's not hard code any of the values, right? So if I now save this and I choose the response, and I call that LLM.invoke. So that same LLM we created, and I say invoke. All right. So I'll say what things could I make with a Raspberry Pi? This will build a response, and let me this time print, not forget. So I can say that print, no, just print the response as a whole. Okay, let's see what it does. Now, if the LLM, the LangChain is loaded properly, we can run this code and it should be able to fetch me the information. Let's see. Now you can see that content is coming up over here, right? So the content is showing up, a long one. Okay, it's a JSON output. So I can drill it down to specific message, specific content, all these things. We can do that. So this is working fine. This is the test we wanted to do. Now we will actually write something called LangChain. Prompt will leverage this. Now, in short, what prompt template is, so this is the prompt, right? Now, if you imagine that you are making the end user's life easier, You'll ask like, what device you're going to use to build your IoT application. They choose Raspberry Pi, but you build the whole question behind that, right? So let's take that example, which I just made up right now. So we'll see that in a behind the scene, we can build the prompt by ourselves as a developer, and end user can only choose or type a small portion of it, and we'll put them into places. So that for that reason, we'll use the prompt template. So let me edit this. Doesn't look that big. So let me put a second level of header, and I come back here and I put the code here, code here. And this is where I'm gonna import some LangChain libraries. I'll say from LangChain OpenAI, import Azure Chat OpenAI from, I have done it earlier also, but I could have just used it, but I just wanted to make sure that when I copy this code, I copy the whole thing. So I'll say LangChain underscore core dot prompts. Okay. Uh, import, not prompt. I will say chat prompt template. Okay. And I will use the same thing here. So let me copy this dot output parsers to beautify it. Input chat string output parser. This is not required, but I just used it for better look and feel. Now here I'm gonna define the LLM. Okay, so same thing which I did earlier. So I define the LLM and I put a break and I just copy the thing which I did earlier. So that's the Azure deployment, this part. So I copy this and I come back here, load the Azure deployment name, which is the model I'm gonna use and the deployment for that model. Now I build the prompt. Okay, so that's from chat prompt template. Okay, and I say from messages. Now it's kind of bringing that thing. Let me keep this with me, but then I need this bracket and NCM. And in this is basically an array. Okay, so I will build a system prompt information, let's say. Earlier we did the assistant. This time we're gonna say system. Okay, in that system prompt, what I'm gonna do is that I put a multi-liner. In Python, if you have to type multi-line, you have to type 3 times this one. Okay, this will give you the multi-line. Now, what things could I do make with here? I'll put a placeholder. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna go ahead and replace that thing. Correct? Or I can say that with a device. Let me do something like that. So not double quote. We don't need double quote. So we'll say that you bring the information about the organization dot, we make it a little complex in following format. colon history name, not name is providing industry history. Let's say official website. So I'm basically trying to bring our organization detail, let's say. And then here in this, I'm gonna add the system thing. So let me start here, system, and add it here. Right here. And then I'm gonna add the user. So it is also telling me the user. And then user is basically the input. Okay. So let me say input. Okay, whatsoever that input is being done by the user is going to come. So let me make it like simple, not many lines. All right, so it's done, right? So this is the prompt template. Now I'm going to define the output person. So I'll say that output person, string output person. That's initialization happened. Now this time LLM will look different. It is not going to be LLM, so it'll be chain. This is where I build the prompt, right? So I'll say prompt, and then I say pipe, the LLM, and then I will format it using the output person. Okay, so this is the prompt. So you see, I use the prompt, I use the LLM, I use the output parser together in the chain. That's going to get me the response. Now, when I need to get the response, so I'll say response chain.invoke, and I need to provide the input here. Okay, so I'll say that input, it might come from a text box. Okay, so you will say that input, and I give a name as Microsoft. Okay, so you can see that it's kind of like getting you the input for a specific thing. So this is where the user input will change, but my prompt remains the same. I don't ask my user to write this kind of prompt. Not everybody is an expert in prompt. Neither they know which prompt is acceptable unless you do a lot of hit and try. So you come up with that prompt after you test it, and then you say that this is what it looks like. Now, let's also print it. And I say response. Now you see that this code is complete, and I'm going to run this code. Now, when I run this code, it will show you the display. So it says the technology is industry, history of the organization is that, and the official website is this. So now what we did essentially in this part is that we use the LangChain. We've seen how simple we can use the LangChain, and then we use that LangChain in a more complex way, like using the prompt template. But it makes the end user's life simple. So end user is not bothered about the prompt; they're bothered about the input. So you ask them to provide the right kind of input. They provide the input, you get the information. You can even say, give the instruction. So if it is not an organization, don't show any output. Okay, you can give those instruction in the prompt also, so that if I say type anything like United States of America or India, it's not going to go give because they are not organization. They are the name of the country. So you can even put it that in the prompt. So prompt can be that rich. So I'm done with this part, and thank you very much for watching.